Welcome to BW Businessworld. Today we are here at Gurugram Chapter of Indian Business Literature Festival, where business meets wisdom. Today it's my honor and privilege to welcome Mr. Paul Dupuis, who is Chairman and CEO of Randstad Japan. He earlier used to lead Randstad India. Today we'll talk about his book, The Rule of Five. Welcome, sir.
Resham, great to see you again. Thank you for having me.
So grateful to have you. In this book, you have written that these 5 rules are timeless and borderless. Tell us about these 5 E's you talked about.
Sure. Well, this is a familiar leadership model, but it's also fresh because it's my perspective on leadership based on 5 E's. The first E is envision. The exceptional leaders that I've been around, that I've observed and studied over the years in genres across arenas, whether it's sports and politics and business and so on, they always started with a powerful vision. But here's the big difference. The vision needs to be about why, not about what. And that was something that I really came to realize, particularly when I was in India and during COVID. So the vision is about why, it touches the hearts and the minds. The next E is to express. This is where a lot of leaders struggle, going out to the world and talking about their vision. In other words, helping people understand it, to digest it. So it does touch the hearts and minds. In our current world, you need to leverage omni-channel and all the different ways of communicating, kind of like what we're doing right now.
That's right.
Then the third E, if you get the second E right, the third E is excite. People start to get excited about this vision. And then they start to lean in and they ask questions like, how can I be involved? And that's a moment of truth. And of course, then the next and the fourth E, and I would say that's where I'm at as a leader right now in my own journey, is leader as enabler, to enable. And enabling doesn't only mean providing technology and tools, it's also creating an environment where everybody can shine, where people can experiment, where they can be the best true version of themselves. That's enable. Sometimes, by the way, it means step out of the way as a leader. Just get out of the way.
Sometimes.
That's enabling. Huh? And finally, the fifth E, and I think every leadership model over history will have this E in there somewhere, execute.
Absolutely.
You must execute for measurable impact. Bring the vision to life. Yeah.
That's right. You talked about individual getting efficient, getting success. You also wrote about finding your true North Star. True star, or let's say North Star. Do you have an actionable plan for individuals to become great leaders? Do you have some checklist or some to-dos for individuals to become great, amazing leaders?
Yeah, so absolutely. I don't buy the notion that people are born leaders. I think leadership is actually a series of muscles that we create. It's like going to the gym, right? And as an ice hockey player, I have to build certain muscles so I can play hockey. With leadership, it's the same thing. There are certain muscles we need. And the muscles we needed yesterday might not be the same that we need tomorrow. Like Marshall Goldsmith said, right? What got you here won't get you there.
That's right.
A lot of it will continue to help us, but we need to build new ones. So I think anybody who wants to be an exceptional leader out there, the first thing is follow Isaac Newton's phrase, stand on the shoulders of giants. Learn from those great leaders already out there. Don't imitate them, but learn from them and create your own ism of leadership. And that's actually what I've done with the E5. It's built on the back of Konosuke Matsushita, the founder of Panasonic. It's built on the words that Mahatma Gandhi would talk about. It's built on Jack Welch's 3 C's, Bob McDonald from P&G, his 5 E's. So there's so many models that blend together and become your version of leadership. So I would say first is, don't imitate, create your own special magic sauce that is your version of leadership, but on the back of others who have walked in front of us.
You talked about learning from great leaders and also learning by doing in your practical work life. How critical is to unlearn? You also talk about collaboration. You also talk about compassion. How important is to unlearn?
Oh, it's so important. I think in my own journey as a leader, I've fallen in the trap, and I meet many leaders who've been the same trap I've been in, where we think we arrive at a certain stage in our leadership journey, and we think we know just about everything we need to know. I don't want to say know it all, but know enough to get the job done. And I think that's a dangerous moment. We should always be learning. And I'm very fortunate that I've been provided opportunities. In fact, just in the next month, I'll be studying at London Business School and then at INSEAD, just in a short period of time. I think it's so important to be learning. And one more thing, when leaders show that they're learning, that sends out a message to the teams.
That's important.
Yeah.
That's important.
Leader needs to lead from the front, including when we talk about learning.
You are a CEO who is a backpacker, who is into skiing, who is into trekking and what not. What are some of the similarities you find derived from these activities and becoming a great leader?
Well, I have to tell you that deep in my DNA is ice hockey. I grew up in Canada, right? So it's in a way, it's like India with cricket. It's almost like a religion, right? And in Canada. And so, I grew up playing hockey ever since I was 4 years old. I've been on skates. And I learned so many valuable lessons on the ice rink that I apply now as a CEO. I'll give you a few. For example, teamwork. Nobody can win alone in a game like hockey. It's so fast moving. Sometimes you have to pass. Sometimes you have to defend. Sometimes you have to shoot. Sometimes you have to sit on the bench and let others go. You get knocked down. You fall down. The importance of always getting back up. So all of these things have really formed a key kind of part of who I am as a leader. And I talk a lot about it in my book.
You talk about knowing a lot to get the job done, but to learn more. In the current times when the things are moving so crazily fast, what are the set rules for leaders to follow and not miss out on something? And also, what are some of the prominent challenges a leader in today's times are facing right now?
Okay, well, the first question, clearly, leadership is built on the back of experience. And as I said earlier, standing on the shoulders of giants, learning from those who've gone before you. But over time as leaders, and leaders I've observed, leaders build up wisdom. Wisdom is actually based on real life experiences, successes, and let's call them mistakes, not failures, and learnings. Along the way, you actually develop a wisdom. That wisdom becomes visionary. And my definition of visionary leadership is not somebody with a crystal ball who can predict, the day after tomorrow, but it's somebody who's had past experience that can envision what's coming around the corner, peek around the corner. So that's really important to look at your past experiences, apply them to what's ahead. That's one. And I think the next thing is what I said earlier, the importance of learning, but also there's one more thing that many leaders don't do. And I was guilty of this until the past few years. I learned that actually it's a good thing to ask for advice. In fact, it's a sign of strength as a leader when you ask for advice when you're not sure. And believe me, every leader I've been around has had moments of uncertainty. I experienced it when I was leading in India, CEO of Randstad India. We had some tough times during COVID. And I asked for advice to people around me, and that helped me lead the team through the challenge.
You talked about critical thinking to build that leadership muscle, if we can say. What is required to build that muscle? And also how your book can help an individual to build that leadership muscle.
Yeah. So again, as I said earlier, it's no different than staying fit. You need to go to the gym and you need to have a healthy cadence. So that's my first, let's say, piece of advice to build the muscle. Healthy cadence. So going to the leadership gym once a month, it's not enough. Just like going to the gym once a month, probably not enough, right? So you need to find that sweet spot. I always look at famous athletes. P.T. Ushkar, the badminton player, and then of course Sachin Tendulkar, so on. And there are lots of ice hockey players, Wayne Gretzky, the legend. They had a healthy cadence. Everything they did, from the moment they woke up to the moment they went to bed, what they ate, how they practiced, how they lived, and how they thought. All of that is very, very important. So finding the healthy cadence is absolutely one key to being ready for tomorrow as a leader.
Who are the leaders you admire? I'm sure there can be a long list, but a few.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's often, you hear the very famous leaders mentioned. Of course, the Steve Jobs and so on. But I've never met these people. So it's hard for me to say genuinely that I admire them because I never really spent time with them. So I think about people that really influenced me and impacted me. I have to say my father. And I'll tell you why. I think when I talk about the borderlessness and the timelessness of leadership, there's certain things that my dad did every day that I reflect on now. That was amazing leadership. For example, walk the talk. Do this, say this, do this. That healthy cadence, that healthy habit. My dad did it. He also taught me something without using these words. He taught me the importance of something that's become my mantra, my guiding mantra in life, which is do well, do good. The exceptional leaders that I've been around and I've studied and so on, didn't just focus on being the best at what they were doing. They also tried to make a positive impact on the world, as Peter Drucker said, right?
This can be a good title for your next book.
Maybe. Do well, do good. That's what I'm aiming to do. Yeah. So tomorrow I leave for Ladakh to go play ice hockey and donate equipment to the remote villages in Ladakh. So, I may be wearing a suit right now, but let me tell you, in 24 hours, I'll be at minus 25 degrees at the top of the world, out on the lakes in the villages of remote Ladakh. I think it's so important to have balance between doing well and doing good.
Also, you talk about Japan's Kaizen blending with India's Jugaad. What idea do you have behind this, and also how will it help the future of work evolve better?
Yeah, what a wonderful question. Maybe that's the next book, by the way, in my head anyway. Okay, so I was in Japan for a long time, as you know. I discovered this thing called Kaizen. Actually, when I was in Canada in university, I was a welder at Chrysler on the assembly line, building the minivan, the Dodge minivan. I heard the word Kaizen for the first time, 1988. And then fast forward into Japan, Kaizen is everywhere. It's lived and breathed every day. It's about constant improvement, meticulous focus on process, 1 degree of change every day, right? And then I came to India, incredible India. And I discovered this thing, this secret weapon called Jugaad. Find a way to get it done with limited resources, just creativity. Come on, we'll find a way. And the speed that the idea comes into action. So then I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you took that focus of Kaizen and blended it with the speed and creativity of Jugaad? What a magical combination. That's actually one of my missions. And I brought Jugaad to Japan, let me tell you. I talk about Jugaad with my team in Japan.
That's interesting.
Just like when I was based in India, I talked about Kaizen.
Yeah. So good to know.
I'm an ambassador of Jugaad and ambassador of Kaizen.
So good to know. Some difficult talks. We just saw the Great Resignation, or let's say layoffs across the sectors, be it startups in India, or let's say corporates, giant corporates, Amazon, and whatnot. What area, in your opinion, can be improvised? What is that one potential area that can be looked at again? And also your advice to leaders and managers, or even the individuals working in these companies, to sail through these difficult times. Yeah,
so we could say that the pace of change has never been faster than it is now. But let me tell you, 25 years ago, when the internet, more like 30 years, when the internet was really starting to take off, the same phrase was used. We've never seen change at this pace. Go back to the 1960s. It was the same thing. I mean, this goes back to the beginning of time. Okay, so let's accept that change is a constant and that change moves at breakneck speed. Embrace it. That's one thing I would advise to everyone out there who's navigating their way through these challenging times. Now, the pandemic was unlike anything we've ever seen in modern history. That was a massive change.
That's right.
It was a sad time. It continues to be in many places. But when you break it down to think what happened, it triggered massive change in the world. Rewind back. When was the last time? Probably the internet. That was the other massive change. Keep going. We'll go back to, way back to the invention of the light bulb and so on. We can think of so many times in history where change was triggered by an event or something that happened. Okay. So you have two choices. You can respond to the change and see it as an opportunity, or you can crawl in a cave and wait for it to pass. Well, it's not going to pass. It's here. So what I would say is what I said earlier. I think it's really important that while companies are downsizing, I can tell you, net, we have data that shows that net, there are more jobs being created. But they're maybe in a different lane. And so the most important skills moving forward in this world of change, one is agility.
That's right.
The ability to pivot. Right? The ability to dodge, the ability to pivot, to change direction, and constant continuous learning. So important.
Absolutely.
It's less about being a specialist, narrow and deep. It's more about being a generalist who's agile, who can learn.
That's right. You constantly talked about being agile. You also talk about practicality, or at some point in time, you also talked about presenteeism.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the major qualities a young leader should have. You already pointed out being agile and open to learn new things. But a young leader who can also become a great leader managing 500 individuals. So what are top 3 qualities?
Sure. First of all, by the way, I don't believe that the number of people you lead or the size of the organization, the revenue is really that important. You can be leading a company that is, $100,000 revenue a year, or leading a company that's $10 million. Frankly, the challenges are the same and the opportunity. Okay, effective leadership works in both ways. So I would say, first of all, when you're a young leader and you're up and coming and you're trying to really make that big impact, the first thing, it's very important. Another thing my dad taught me. He said, 2 ears, 1 mouth. 2 ears, 1 mouth. And I was a young guy and I was thinking, why are you speaking in riddles, Dad? What do you mean? 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Could you please decode this?
Right, decode this. Someone, now I get it. Listen first, speak second. Listen more than you speak. And as a leader coming up, this is a trap that a lot of leaders fall in. We get to a point where we think we are leaders because we know something that others don't know. Therefore, we shift into telling mode. Call it preaching. Well, actually, the most effective leaders that I've been around were great listeners. Great listeners. So remember to listen first. The next thing is, as you listen, you should be looking for the motivational buttons of everybody that's on your team. Think about the diversity you have in the room. Not everybody's motivated by the same thing. Understand the motivations of the individual members of the team and push those motivational buttons to get a response, to get impact.
That was really nuggets of wisdom. I can vouch for it. What was your New Year's resolution when 2023 started? I mean, we're still in the second week, but yeah. Yeah,
I have every year I set resolutions that are very clear and measurable. They always have an element of do well, do good. On the do well part, I'm kind of excited actually. I mean, as a leader, as a CEO, we're growing fast, and that's an exciting time in Japan for us, of course, globally. But also, I just confirmed that I will be publishing my book in Japanese. Japanese. So the Japanese version of my book is going to come out this year. We're just in the process now, working with the publisher, and it's all happening. It's very exciting. So that's one. On the do good part, I am so committed to this cause in Ladakh. And we're teaming up with the schools, of course, Sonam Wanchak at Sekmo is a friend of mine, and the local government, local hockey associations, and so on, how we can continue to support and do something even bigger for Ladakh. And of course, create a proper, the one and only, proper regulation, international size ice hockey rink. And we're working on that as well. So that's, this year, those are my two big goals.
So good to know. Just my final question. What and how going forward, the future of work would evolve in, let's say, it can happen in next 1 year, 3 years, 20 or 25 years, but one prediction, how would the future of work evolve?
Okay, well, this is not rocket science or a major revolution. The future of work is here to stay, in that hybrid is here to stay. And hybrid is defined by culture. It's interesting to note that in Japan, if you say hybrid, it's an average of about 3 days a week into the office, 2 days at home. In India, if you say it, it's about 2.1 days in the office and the other days at home. In the US, it's 1.7 days in the office, the rest at home. Anyway, this new way of working, hybrid, where you don't actually physically go to a place to work, is here to stay. I absolutely believe. And if the pandemic eventually goes away and COVID is gone in a distant memory, I believe that this is a new way of working. We should all embrace it. That's challenging for a lot of the, let's say, older leaders out there, because we didn't grow up in that world. I would say embrace it. There's a big opportunity. That means borderlessness of talent. It's no longer about, I need to hire somebody in this city, in this state, right? Yeah? I can have somebody who's in a completely different part of the country or maybe even the world. And then it's going to be more about output. It's not about the job. It's about the impact.
This has been a very, very insightful conversation. And the best part which I'm taking away is do well, do good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great conversation.
Thank you.